Hi guys, Sheo here. First of all, allow me to say this. This is a video I wish I did not have to make. I do not wish to be a drama YouTuber, and I would much prefer to focus instead on actual game development stuff. Anyway, today we're going to talk about Malbers Controller, Horse Anim Set Pro. Actually, there are two versions of this asset. This animal controller is the light version, and Horse Anim Set Pro is the full version. And as you may see here, this is a well-liked and popular asset. And the truth is, there are many things in this asset which I can't really criticize. I mean, overall, it seems to be a correct controller, and I especially like the riding and flying mechanics. And for its price, especially right now, there is a big reduction because of the Black Friday sale. For this price, this is more than decent. Nonetheless, there are three specific issues I want to talk about with this asset. First of all, there is a camera sensitivity issue caused by frame rate. There is a lack of camera smoothness with high frame rates, more specifically when the frame rate goes over 60 and you have a high refresh rate monitor, like for example a 120 Hz monitor. You can see that the game feels limited at 60, even though the actual FPS is much higher than that. And lastly, I want to talk about the very strange attitude of the developer and some, I really mean some, members of his community. This is the Bug Report Legacy channel on Malbers Discord. There are 175 messages from me there, but don't worry, I won't read through the entire thing. Instead, I will just focus on the essential and show how the drama went down, and paste two links on the review and YouTube description, one for this channel and one for the dedicated thread I made later on. Anyway, I made the first post on the 8th of April of this year, after giving the asset a quick try and taking a look at the ultimate character controller integration, which was, and I think still is, outdated. For the record, however, I don't really care that much about it, I don't even need the integration right now, and that's not the topic for today. What is the topic, however, is the 60 FPS issue, which I mentioned there. However, the dev did not react to that back then. So 3 months later, I bumped the issue and mentioned for the first time the camera sensitivity issue. So basically, as I wrote there, the camera sensitivity was affected by the frame rate, and the lower the frame rate, the more sensitive the camera was, which was a gigantic issue. You just can't ship a game with that, especially if it's a combat or action game. I mean, imagine like a game like Counter-Strike with an unreliable sensitivity. That would be unacceptable. Anyway, so some guy here tried to help, and others did too, by suggesting some change of parameters, and I thank them for that, but unfortunately none of that was helpful and solved the issue. Okay, and now here's a big thing. I was initially assuming that Malbers had a 60 Hz monitor, but he told us there that he had a 240 Hz one. And that's where things started to heat up a bit. When I said that, this is a major problem, I can't believe you sold the asset like that if you didn't have a 60 Hz monitor. As we're going to learn later on, however, Malbers has an issue with his 240 Hz monitor, which seems to be working like a 60 Hz one. However, I hope you can understand that my reaction was not exaggerated, especially if you yourself watching this video have a high refresh rate monitor. If you do, then you know that the difference between 60 and 240, or even just 60 and 120, is extremely significant and can't be ignored, unless you have eye issues. This was not the opinion of Crooksist, a team member I believe, who took issues with me saying I can't believe you sold the asset like that, and that it was very rude towards the developer who has literally given hundreds upon hundreds of hours to the asset in development, support, etc. And as I said here, I was not denying that fact. In addition, I think that this is a bit of a shitty excuse, which is going to come back a few times later on in the discussion. Basically, even if this asset had been the best in the world, and that the dev had been extremely generous, that would not change the reality of this specific issue, which was even more surprising considering the fact that the dev just told us he had a 240Hz monitor. Let's move on now. Yeah, the dev himself took issue with that also. And there, I asked him very simply if the camera sensitivity was affected by the frame rate on his side. The following day, I used the recorder from Unity to make two videos at 120 FPS in the Unity third-person sample and the demo scene from Malbers asset to show a difference between the two. So you won't see anything there because I'm recording this with OBS and I'm going to upload this to YouTube. So in any case, it's going to be capped at 60 FPS. But I recommended to many people in this discussion to use the recorder. And I insist on that. You're going to understand why later on. And for the record, that was that was not necessary. That's the only message in this entire discussion from me, which was a bit out of place. Okay, so now let's move on to the dedicated thread I made. Okay, so yeah, boy is a friend of mine whom I told about the issue because at that point apparently nobody was on my side, and doing the actual test I was asking for. So he did that and made a simple summary. And thank you again, yeah, boy, for that. There we started to make progress. And if you have been following so far, I hope you're as surprised as I was when seeing these messages. Because except for one specific occasion, as I mentioned earlier, I had been talking correctly to people and explaining the issue clearly. Okay, so at that point, the issue was solved for the new input system, which was really what mattered. The new input system also became the default system for the asset later on, which I think is a good thing. So at least credit for Malbers for actually fixing that for the new input system, even though I have to say it took some time, as you may have seen. So yeah, so then I came back to the frame rate issue, I mean the camera smoothness issue. I had to bump him there again. And now here's the most ridiculous part of the entire story. I told Malbers there that my suspicion was that his monitor was not properly set up, because there is no other way he could have been ignoring the issue if his monitor was working perfectly fine at 240 Hz. And I asked him a very simple question. So sorry if this sounds very dumb, but do you see any difference between your two monitors generally speaking? Like when you're playing a video game, or even just moving your mouse around your screen? And I had to bump him again a few days later, asking the same simple question. And he made a video with OBS. which I remind you is capped at 60 FPS. So I asked him again the same simple question. Like literally, all I was asking him to do was go to your desktop, like move your mouse in a circle like that, and do that for both screens, and see if it feels 4 times smoother on one screen than the other. Literally just that. Yeah, so I told him that time that that was the last time, and he dared say that recording a video does not help you out to identify the issue, as I told him several times already about the recorder from Unity, not OBS, not anything else. In addition, he seems to have a poor understanding of FPS. So yeah, he mentioned that he has a very high FPS count, and that's the bloody issue. It doesn't feel that way. And he said that he did not hear about other devs who have the same issue, even though Yeahboy and Floki in this thread said that they saw the issue. They saw a lack of, they saw a difference in smoothness. That was enough, and it was past time I made a negative review on the Unity Asset Store. To be clear, I know what negative reviews mean. And I mean, for any kind of product, not just assets. A handful of one-star reviews, or even just one, can damage the reputation of a product and discourage other customers from buying the product. So really, I am not taking that lightly, but with what I just showed, I hope you understand that the dev had it coming. Anyway, I will not read through the entire thing. You can do so if you want. Now back to the thread. This is a message by Justin, the developer of Ultimate Counter Controller, whom I helped with a similar issue for the camera. Yeah, and he made a recording with his phone instead of the recorder from Unity. And so my friend Yeahboy here came back and asked for a peaceful resolution of the problem, and props to him for trying to do so. So I agreed to remove the review and give some more time to try and solve the issue. Now, Floki comes back there. I will not read through the entire thing. Yeah, I tried to be as patient as possible and to get some very simple explanations. So here are the two posing questions. And this one. Yeah, so no example from him, obviously, because there are none. Okay, and so here's a long post from me. Once again, I won't read through that. But basically at that point, we finally had the info we needed from Malbers. Where was that? Just a moment. Yeah, so he told us there that the difference was pretty tiny between the two monitors, and that's just what we needed to hear. Because that highly suggested that something was wrong with his high refresh rate monitor. And so from there, I was able to make suggestions. But I also decided to not drop the matter with him and Floki, and I asked him very simply if there was one example of me being out of line. So I asked him that again. And so I had to put an end to it and say that I was not going to help anymore if he was not answering first. And so yeah, I was pleasantly surprised at that moment, but it did not last. Yeah, so I asked him about Floki again, and I said that his sorry wouldn't go amiss. And just as a reminder, because I'm not sure I lingered on that earlier, yeah, thanks Floki to intervene, the guy who said all of that, without being able to give a simple example of me being out of line. And yeah, he tried to stop there, and said, I just want to make awesome assets and cool creatures. And guess what? So do I! But that's not the point. You can't just say something disrespectful to someone who's been helping you and really offering help on a silver platter and being extremely patient, because we are on the 6th of November at that point. And really, he could have just solved that in one single sentence, literally. Also, if you find admissions of guilt weird, you might have some questionable morals, I think. Now, yeah, here's the very fucked up part. But my rebuttal is extremely simple. Call this what if you want. Do you even think I am wrong here? And his answer is, are you wrong? Not entirely as per Malbers' comments previously. Are you being constructive with all this side chatter? Not at all. And technically he was correct. At that specific moment, I was not helping to make any progress on the issue. But that is not the point. The point was right there, in the line above. And it gets even more fucked up there. At the end of the day, it doesn't matter who said what or who is sorry to who. And that is incredibly fucked up, hypocritical and cynical, as it begs two simple questions. First of all, if words don't matter, then why was I criticized for being disrespectful? And also, most importantly, if I were to tell this guy something actually disrespectful and insulting, would he really not care about it, or even expect an apology? Anyway, we are almost at the end. And there we are. And one last thing I'm going to add. The same bullshit excuse came back. That may be true. Once again, that is not the point. That changes absolutely nothing to what has been said before. To finish this video, there is one last thing I have to address. This is the announcement channel on his Discord, and while I was recording the video, the developer posted a short list of bug fixes, proving that he still cares about the asset, helps other people, and tries to make the asset better. And here is an even bigger list from a few days ago. So that clearly is to his credit, and I am not denying that. So when you see this, you may be tempted to recommend the asset and have faith in the developer, but unfortunately, that does not erase anything I've shown so far in this video. And my conclusion is going to be this. If you can't trust the developer with things as simple as moving his mouse along his mouse pad at different frame rates, and confirming whether the frame rate affects the camera sensitivity, and moving his mouse over his wallpaper on his two screens and confirming whether one of his screens is smoother than the other, then what can you trust him with? not to mention his dubious attitude and the way he reacts to criticism. So yeah, unfortunately that's my conclusion. In any case, thank you for watching and have a good day or good night. Bye!